The valet didn't even look at me when I pulled up. That should have been my first warning. The second came when he did finally glance over, eyes dragging across my car like it had personally offended him. Not a luxury badge, not polished to a mirror shine, just a clean, reliable sedan that had carried me across 3 states and a lifetime of decisions. He snapped his gum, valet's full. I glanced behind him. Empty spots. Right, I said calmly. I'll park it myself then. He didn't argue, didn't care enough to. That should have been my third warning. But I ignored all of them. Because I wasn't here for comfort. I was here for something far more valuable. Inside, the lobby of the Ashford Grand Hotel gleamed like money had been poured into every corner. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, a scent in the air that whispered exclusivity. Wealth, power. The kind of place that decided your worth before you opened your mouth. I walked toward the front desk, my shoes echoing softly. 3 employees stood behind the counter, all perfectly dressed, all perfectly trained. And all of them paused when they saw me. Not a welcoming pause. A measuring one. I smiled anyway. Reservation under Carter. The woman at the center, sharp cheekbones, colder eyes, typed something into her computer. Her lips tightened slightly. Then she looked up. And smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile that welcomed you. It was the kind that dismissed you. "I'm sorry," she said smoothly. "We only reserve rooms for elite guests." There it was. Not even subtle. Not even polite enough to hide it. I felt the words land, heavy and deliberate. Behind me, I could sense it, the quiet shift in the lobby. People pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. Watching. Waiting. To see how I'd react. I nodded slowly. Understood. Her smile widened just a fraction. Victory. That's what she thought this was. I turned without another word. No argument. No scene. No explanation. Just a quiet exit. And somehow, that confused her more than anything else would have. Outside, the air felt different. Cooler. Sharper. Honest. I walked past my car without stopping. Past the valet, who didn't even notice I was leaving. And straight down the block. Because I had a phone call to make. And unlike the Ashford Grand, some people actually picked up when I called. 3 hours later, everything changed. Back inside the Ashford Grand, the lobby buzzed with a different kind of energy. Nervous. Tense. The kind that spreads fast when something important is about to happen. Because word had come down. The owner was arriving. Unannounced. Unscheduled. And furious. The general manager, Richard Halstead, was sweating through his tailored suit as he barked orders at his staff. Everything's spotless. I don't care if you have to polish the floor with your sleeves. The same receptionist who had turned me away earlier adjusted her posture, anxiety creeping into her expression. "What's this about?" she asked. Halstead snapped, "You don't ask questions. You fix anything that could possibly be wrong. But we've passed every audit. Clearly not enough." His voice dropped. "He doesn't show up unless there's a problem." A silence fell over the desk. Because everyone knew who he was. Daniel Carter. The man who had built an empire from nothing. Hotels, resorts, entire city blocks. A name that didn't just open doors. It owned them. At exactly 6:47 p.m., a black SUV rolled up to the entrance. The valet straightened instantly. This time he ran. The doors opened before the engine even stopped. And when I stepped out, everything shifted. The same marble floors. The same chandelier. The same staff. But suddenly, I belonged. No. Not belonged. Owned. The valet's posture was different now, respectful, alert. "Welcome, sir." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The doors opened for me. And as I stepped inside, the entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Richard Halstead spotted me first. His face drained of color. Then he ran. actually ran. Across the polished floor, nearly slipping in his urgency. "Mr. Carter," he said, breathless, "if we had known you were coming." "I was here." 3 simple words. And they hit like a hammer. His smile froze. "I what?" "I was here," I repeated, calm, controlled, 3 hours ago. The silence that followed was absolute. Heavy. Dangerous. Halstead's eyes flicked toward the front desk. Toward her. And that's when she realized. That's when the color vanished from her face. That's when her confidence shattered into something fragile. Something terrified. "I asked for a room," I continued. Each word deliberate. Measured. And I was told. I looked directly at her. Locked eyes with the same woman who had dismissed me so easily. So confidently. That you only reserve rooms for elites. You could hear a pin drop. No one moved. No one breathed. Because in that moment, everyone understood exactly what had happened. And exactly what it meant. Halstead turned slowly. Too slowly. Like delaying the inevitable might somehow soften it. "What happened?" he asked, his voice barely holding together. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I thought. "You thought what?" The question cut through her. "I thought he didn't look the part," I finished for her. Her silence was answer enough. I took a step forward. Not aggressive. Not loud. But it carried weight. The kind you don't ignore. "You built your entire standard on appearances," I said quietly, "not people." "No, sir, I." "And you were wrong." Another step. Closer now. "You didn't just turn away a guest." I let the words settle. "You turned away the owner." The lobby shifted again. This time, it wasn't curiosity. It was fear. Halstead's voice shook. "Mr. Carter, I assure you, this does not reflect our values." "It reflects exactly your values." I cut him off. Clean. Sharp. Because excuses didn't interest me. Truth did. And truth had already spoken. I turned my attention back to her. She looked smaller now. Not physically, but in every other way. Confidence gone. Certainty gone. Replaced with the crushing realization that one moment, one decision, had just rewritten her entire life. "What's your name?" I asked. "Emily," she whispered. "Emily." I nodded slowly. "Do you know why this hotel exists?" She didn't answer. Didn't dare. "It exists because I never forgot what it felt like to be turned away." That caught her off guard. And yet, I gestured around us. Here we are. The silence stretched. Thick. Unforgiving. Then, I turned away. Because the real decision wasn't about her. It was about everything. "Clear my schedule," I said to Halstead. "Tonight." "Now." He nodded instantly. "Yes, sir." "Boardroom, 10 minutes." And as I walked past them, past the desk, past the place where I had been judged, I added one final sentence. Quiet, but devastating. We're about to redefine what elite actually means. Behind me, everything began to unravel. And the Ashford Grand would never be the same again. Because some stories don't start with revenge. They start with a door closing. And the wrong person being on the other side of it. And this was just the beginning. The boardroom overlooked the entire city. Floor-to-ceiling glass, a skyline soaked in gold as the sun dipped low, the kind of view people paid fortunes for because it made them feel powerful. Tonight, it made everyone feel small. I stood at the head of the table, silent, hands resting lightly against the polished surface. One by one, they filed in. Executives, department heads, legal advisors. And finally, Richard Halstead. He hesitated at the door. Just for a second. But I noticed. I always noticed. "Sit," I said without looking at him. Chairs shifted, papers rustled. No one spoke unless absolutely necessary. Because the air in that room, it wasn't tense anymore. It was controlled. By me. I let the silence stretch. Not for drama. For clarity. Because people reveal themselves in silence far more than they ever do in noise. Finally, I spoke. Tell me what this hotel stands for. The question landed softly. Too softly. Halstead cleared his throat. Excellence, prestige, a curated experience for. For who? I cut in. He paused. For our valued guests. Define valued. Another pause. Longer this time. And that's when I turned. Slowly. Eyes scanning every single face in the room. Anyone? I asked. No one answered. Because they all knew. There was only one honest answer. And none of them were brave enough to say it. So I did. For people who look like they belong. The words hit harder than shouting ever could. People who dress right, speak right, drive the right car, carry the right name. I took a step forward. And anyone outside that. Silence. Again. Heavy. Guilty. Disposable. Halstead leaned forward quickly. Mr. Carter, that's not. That's exactly what happened. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I walked into my own hotel, asked for a room, and your staff decided I was elite enough. I let that sit. Let it burn. Do you know how dangerous that is? No one answered. Because this wasn't about embarrassment anymore. This was about exposure. Perception builds reputation, I continued. Reputation builds trust, and trust. I paused. Is the only currency that matters. I walked toward the glass wall. The city stretched endlessly below. Millions of people. Millions of stories. Millions of individuals who would never step foot in a place like this. Because someone decided they didn't belong. I built this company for people who were told no, I said quietly. People who were overlooked, dismissed, judged. I turned back. And somewhere along the way, my eyes locked onto Halstead. You turned it into the very thing I hated. No one moved. No one even blinked. Because this wasn't a meeting anymore. This was a reckoning. Bring her in. Halstead froze. Sir. Emily. His jaw tightened. She's not part of this meeting. She is now. 2 words. Final. Unarguable. Minutes later, the door opened again. Emily stepped in like she was walking into a storm she couldn't escape. Her uniform was still perfect. Her posture not so much. She stood near the door, unsure. Invisible. The way she had made me feel earlier. Come in, I said. She did. Slowly. Every step heavier than the last. Stand there. I gestured toward the center of the room. She obeyed. Because at this point, there was nothing else she could do. I looked around the table. Everyone here, I said, has power. I let my gaze settle on each of them. You decide who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets welcomed. Then, I gestured toward Emily. And who gets turned away. She flinched. Barely. But I saw it. Emily, I said, softer now. She looked up. Terrified. Yes, sir. Why did you refuse me a room? Her lips parted. Closed. Then finally. I thought you didn't fit our standard. Honest. Painfully honest. The room shifted. Because that was worse than an excuse. That was belief. And what is your standard? I asked. She hesitated. Then whispered. Guests who represent the brand. And what does the brand represent? Silence. She didn't know. Not really. Because no one had ever actually defined it. They just enforced it. I nodded slowly. That's the problem. I walked back to the head of the table. None of you know what this brand represents anymore. I placed both hands down. Firm. Grounded. So let me remind you. I let the words come carefully. Not rushed. Not emotional. Just truth. This company was never about exclusivity. A pause. It was about experience. Another pause. Respect. And then, dignity. My eyes moved to Emily again. You didn't just deny me a room. My voice lowered. You denied me dignity. Her eyes filled instantly. Because that word, that one always cuts deepest. And here's the part you still don't understand, I continued. I wasn't testing you. I let that sink in. I was just a guest. The room felt colder. Because that meant anyone could have been me. Anyone could have been turned away. Anyone could have walked out with that same quiet humiliation. And how many have? I asked. No one answered. But they didn't need to. We all knew. I straightened. Decision made. Effective immediately. Every spine in the room stiffened. We're changing everything. Halstead leaned forward again. Sir, we can review policies, retrain staff. No. I shook my head. That's not enough. I looked directly at him. Because this didn't happen by accident. A beat. This happened because you allowed it. His face tightened. Because he knew. He absolutely knew. You created an environment where judgment replaced service. Another step. Where appearance outweighed humanity. Another. And where power was abused quietly. I stopped. Right in front of him. Until today. The silence was suffocating. Then, I delivered it. Calm. Clean. Unavoidable. Richard Halstead, you're relieved of your position. Effective immediately. The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They landed exactly where they were meant to. Halstead blinked. Once. Twice. Like his brain hadn't caught up yet. Sir, this isn't a discussion. Security stepped in. Not aggressive. Just present. Final. And just like that, power shifted. Halstead stood slowly. Broken in a way no one in that room had ever seen before. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just gone. As he walked past Emily, he didn't even look at her. Because he couldn't. Because she was part of the reason. And also, the proof. The door closed behind him. Soft. Permanent. I turned back to the room. To the rest of you. Every eye snapped to me. You have one chance to decide what kind of place this will be. No one spoke. Because now, they understood. This wasn't about policies. This was about identity. I looked at Emily. Still standing. Still shaken. Still human. Emily. She swallowed hard. Yes. Do you believe people deserve respect before they earn it? Her answer came quicker this time. Yes. Then prove it. She blinked. Confused. How? I walked toward the door. Paused. Then looked back at her. At the front desk. A beat. Where it actually matters. And as I opened the door, I added one more thing. For the next guest who walks in. A pause. Don't see what they look like. I met her eyes. See who they are. Then I left. Because the real test was never in the boardroom. It was always out there. At the door. Where someone would walk in. And everything would either change. Or prove that nothing ever had. The lobby felt different now. Not quieter. Not louder. Just aware. Like every breath taken inside those marble walls suddenly carried weight. Emily stood behind the front desk, her hands resting lightly on the counter, but they weren't steady. Not yet. The polished surface reflected her face back at her. And for the first time since she'd started working here, she didn't recognize the person staring back. Because that version of her, the one who judged, the one who decided, the one who quietly turned people away, was gone. Or at least, breaking. The other staff members kept glancing at her. Some with sympathy, some with fear, some with something else entirely. Relief. Because what happened tonight didn't just expose her. It exposed all of them. The doors opened. Automatically. Soft. Smooth. And every head turned. Not because of who walked in, but because now it mattered. An older man stepped inside. Simple clothes, worn jacket, shoes that had seen years, not trends. He paused just inside the entrance, looking around like he wasn't sure he belonged there. And for a split second, the old system whispered, "Not elite. Not the right look. Not the right fit." Emily felt it. That instinct. That reflex. That invisible line she used to draw between people. And then, she remembered. The silence. The humiliation. The moment someone looked at her and saw nothing. She stepped forward. Before anyone else could. Before hesitation could win. "Good evening," she said. And this time, her voice didn't carry judgment. It carried presence. "Welcome to the Ashford Grand." The man blinked. Surprised. Thank you," he said, uncertain. I was wondering if you had any rooms available." Emily smiled. Not the rehearsed smile. Not the polished one. A real one. "Of course we do." The shift was immediate. Subtle, but powerful. Behind her, one of the staff members straightened. Another leaned in slightly. Watching. Learning. Emily continued, "How many nights will you be staying with us?" The man hesitated. "Just one, maybe two." "Perfect. Let me find something comfortable for you." She turned to the system. Typed. But this time, she wasn't filtering. Wasn't evaluating. Wasn't deciding if he deserved it. She was simply serving. "Would you prefer a city view or something quieter?" she asked. The man blinked again. "Quieter," he said, "if that's okay." "Of course it is." She printed the key. Placed it gently on the counter. "Room 814. If you need anything at all, just let us know." He stared at the key for a moment. Then back at her. "You're very kind," he said quietly. And that's when it hit her. Not like a shock. Not like a revelation. But like something that had always been true. And she had just finally noticed it. Kindness did lower the standard. It defined it. "Thank you," she replied softly. As he walked toward the elevators, the energy in the room shifted again. Not tense. Not fearful. But grounded. One of the other employees stepped closer. "That was different," she said quietly. Emily nodded. "Yeah." A pause. But it felt right. Across the lobby, I watched everything. Unseen. Unannounced. Just like before. Except this time, no one turned me away. Because I hadn't stepped forward yet. I leaned against one of the marble pillars, arms crossed, observing. Not the surface. Not the performance. The intent. And for the first time that night, I saw it. Chain. Not perfect. Not complete. But real. Emily didn't know I was there. Didn't know she was being watched again. And that's what made it matter. Because people reveal who they are. When they think no one's judging them. I stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. And this time, the valet noticed. Immediately, the doors opened. The air shifted. Emily looked up and froze. Not in fear, not in panic, but in recognition. Of the moment, of the choice, of the weight behind everything that had happened. I approached the desk. Same steps, same place, same man, different outcome. Good evening, she said. And there it was. No hesitation. No judgment. Just respect. Good evening, I replied. A beat. I'd like a room. The entire desk went still. Every ear tuned in. Every breath held. Because this was the moment. Emily nodded. Of course, Mr. Carter. She didn't rush. Didn't stumble. Didn't overcompensate. She simply did her job. What kind of room would you prefer? She asked. I watched her carefully. Measured every word. Every expression. Looking for cracks. For anything that suggested this was just fear disguised as change. But I didn't find it. Something simple, I said. She smiled slightly. We can do simple. A few keystrokes. A quiet confidence. A presence that hadn't been there before. She placed the key on the counter. But this time, there was something else with it. A small card. For anything you need, she said, this number goes directly to me. I looked at the card. Then at her. Why? I asked. A simple question. But a heavy one. Her answer came without hesitation. Because everyone deserves to be taken care of. Silence. And then, I nodded. Good answer. Relief flickered across her face. But it didn't take over. Because she wasn't performing anymore. She was choosing. I picked up the key. Turned slightly. Then paused. Emily. Yes. This is your lobby now. Her brows furrowed slightly. What do you mean? I faced her fully. The standard you set. A beat. Is the standard that stays. The weight of that settled over her. Not as pressure, but as responsibility. I won't always be here, I continued, but what you do here. I gestured around us. Will be. She nodded slowly. Understanding. Real understanding. Then I won't mess it up, she said. I held her gaze for a moment longer. Then, a small, almost invisible smile. I believe you. And with that, I turned, walked toward the elevators. Not as someone proving a point. Not as someone seeking revenge. But as someone who had just witnessed something far more powerful than punishment. Chain. Behind me. The lobby continued. Guests walked in. Staff greeted them. And something subtle, but undeniable, had shifted. No one announced it. No one celebrated it. But it was there. In every greeting. In every interaction. In every decision. The Ashford Grand wasn't exclusive anymore. It was exceptional. Because elite was never about wealth. Or appearance. Or status. It was about how you treated people. When you didn't have to. And that was a standard worth building an empire on. Some stories end with revenge. With someone losing everything. With justice served loud and dramatic. But the most powerful ones, they end with something far more dangerous. A chance. And the people who decide what to do with it. That night, a door didn't just close. It opened. For everyone who had ever been told, you don't belong here. Because now, they finally did. And this time, no one would turn them away.